Okay, I'm live. I'm live on both now. That's outstanding. Okay. What do we want to talk about? We want to talk about, there's a few things we need to talk about. Just found out today that in August, Saudi Arabia secretly bought 160 tons, 160 tons of gold. That's not a small amount. Now, why I say secretly, because they chose not to tell anyone that they did it. And so it took us some time to find out through hook or by crook. But the bottom line is we found out. Now, the question you've got to ask yourself is why would Saudi Arabia buy gold? I mean, they have an enormous amount of natural resources. So they don't need more natural resources. They don't need more commodities. They have one of the world's most important commodities already. It's because they don't want to buy our debt in the United States anymore. And they have all of this cash in many, many different currencies now because they've stopped using the American dollar as their main currency. And so they don't want to hold on to a bunch of different currencies. So they would normally, what they've done in the last 50 years is buy our debt, buy bonds from us. So if we wanted to just keep spending like drunken sailors, we could do that easily. Not now. We are going into a new system. Well, potentially. We are definitely failing at the system we're in. That's the problem. Is that the system that we're in now just blew up. And of course, the idea that the market is going to start screaming upward because of this rate cut is mainstream horse shit. Whenever the Fed has cut the rates, and they've done it several times, no, I don't do crypto because I'm really familiar with the internet, and I'm very familiar with all of the threats to it. And as soon as the internet goes down for a few days, your crypto may or may not be worthless, but it'll be worthless when the internet's down. That's a fact. And if the grid goes down, it's worse than worthless. So I'm being very careful about that. So because of that, I stay away from crypto, even though I love it. Dollars should hold for a while. No, absolutely not. That is exactly wrong. That is exactly why they just cut the rates, to devalue the dollar. The dollar will now get weaker faster than you can possibly imagine. 55% of the world, crypto stays online in your pocket. Go try to use it at a hotel or the gas station or anywhere else. Yeah, the bottom line is this. Every time there's been a rate cut of 25 points at the beginning of an easing cycle, it's led to a market rally. Every single time, going all the way back to 1981, that there's a 50 basis point cut, within 90 days, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are down by as much as 20%. Because everybody understands that the only reason you cut by 50 basis points just to kick it off, is because you fucked up and you went way over. You destroyed the job market, and so now cutting rates. What does that do? What does 0.5% do, other than create more inflation? Nothing. Doesn't help the job market at all. Not for years. So what exactly was the point in this? Well, it's because they overcorrected again. And every single time they've kicked off rate cutting with 50 basis points, it's because they knew they fucked up, and the S&P and the NASDAQ have taken it right in the kisser. That's what I do for a living, Greg. I am in the gold and silver business. That's all I do right now. Well, I do a little bit of consulting with people who are worried about the shit hitting the fan and what to do with, if they have. Give you a perfect example. I live in a very, very wealthy area, the wealthiest area actually. Why do they? On purpose, because the wealthiest people in the world, and hedge funds, et cetera, make more money in a down market than an up market, because the stock market's always the same, and it's just like anything else. It takes the stairs up and the elevator down. So if you can make a certain amount of money over the course of, say, 5 years with the market going up by a few thousand points, but then you can make that same amount of money in 5 weeks while the market falls completely, then you made that same amount of money in what 1/100th of the time. That's why they do it. Yeah, I'm in the gold and silver market right now because it's the only asset class without any counterparty risk. It's gone up 33% in the last year, which is more than the S&P 500. Hello, I mean, look, if you're talking about where to put your money right now, there is no other place. We have no idea what's going to happen with the housing market, although nobody can afford it, and a half a point rate cut does nothing to the affordability. They just announced that for the first time since 2011, no, excuse me, 2010, um, uh, uh, foreclosures on homes have ticked up here in Arizona. That's how it starts. As far as 60 days and 90 days late, it's a huge jump. Credit card debt right now, there's $1.6 billion, $1.6 trillion in credit card debt. And the banks are all talking about the fact that they are seeing massive, massive problems with that. 60, 90 days late on virtually everything. So right now, the shit is actually hitting the fan. If you're 59, depends on how much money you've got. If you've got some money, call me. Buy silver. I'll get it to you cheaper than anybody else will. We can go online and look at APMEX and JM Bullion, and you can see their prices. I'll give you the exact same product, but I'll do it for a lot cheaper. One of my guys just saved $15,000 on his first purchase. He was about to pull the trigger with APMEX, and he called me just to check. And he said, but I really want the APMEX. I said, okay, I'll get you APMEX. And he was like, how do you get me APMEX? I told him I'm a wholesaler for them. I just don't have the overhead. So I'll give you the exact same bullion, but I'll save you a lot of money. So how much money do you need? Well, depends on how many ounces you're buying. I mean, hell, they're 31, it's 31.50 right now at spot price. So, if you got $310,000, I say you buy 10,000 ounces quick. Hello, Purple Rose. Yeah, I mean, right now, based on what's going on in this market, based on the complete total insanity of what's happening, there's no other place to put money. There really isn't. Not with any degree of safety. I mean, yeah, if you want to take a chance on the market melting up instead of going down, maybe this time will be different than every other time since 1981. And it's not like I'm saying that they did this one other time. They've done it several times over the course of the last 43 years. And every time they got the same result. That should tell you something. Remember that the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States of America, a private corporation, told us that there was no risk of a recession or any problems structurally with the stock market 1 week before the market collapsed in 2008. Remember that, okay? That's what they do. Their job, and this is something that is super, super important. I don't talk about this enough. And it's really, I think it's the key, because if you want to know what the Federal Reserve's job is, it's stated in their charter that they are here to protect the value of the U.S. dollar. Now, we know that the U.S. dollar has lost 96% of its buying power since the inception of the Federal Reserve Bank. For the first almost 300 years that people lived in this country, there all the way back through the colonies, there was somewhere between 1% and no percent inflation for the entire time. And then over the course of the last 100 years, we've lost 96% of the value of our currency. So their job is to protect the value of the dollar. Their job is not to tell you the truth about what is going on with the dollar. It doesn't say that anywhere. You have to understand that when somebody like Janet Yellen, when she's talking, She's not talking to help you. She's talking to help the entire country, in her opinion. And so they make decisions based on what they believe we need to hear to keep the markets safe. Now, if that happens to be something that is not true, then it goes back to the preservation of the many as opposed to the preservation of the one. And so they will directly look you in the face on almost all media and lie to you. That's just what they're paid to do. And it's not like these people are heartless sons of bitches and liars and cheats and thieves, although some of them, quite frankly, are. It's because they are trying to accomplish something that they believe is much bigger than just you, just your 401k, just your IRA. So, gold versus over history. Well, it's been stable for 10,000 years. Yes, you do have to be your own bank nowadays. You cannot keep your money in the bank. That is insanity. So it's one of these things where people don't understand just how bad a situation we're in as far as the banking system. The banking system, not all of it, because you're going to bail them out one way or the other, but most of the banking system will collapse. All of the small and mid-size local and regional banks, virtually all of them will be destroyed by this. And it's because they built it to be that way. Probably at least as honest as Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, well, there you go. And again, these people are thinking on a big scale. They, if you lose your IRA because you're one of the plebes, because you're one of the commoners, well, that's not their concern. Their concern is the structural integrity of the system. Well, how much do you matter to the overall system? Absolutely. If you can put gold and silver in your IRA, do it. And there are a lot of self-directed IRAs out there. I can even show you, depending on how much you've got. No, they won't do a silver confiscation. It doesn't have enough value. They could do a foreign currency confiscation. If they did a foreign currency confiscation, then that would be all gold and silver coins that are not minted in the United States. So that would be a bit of an issue. So if you're buying from some huge company like APMEX and you're buying Canadian maple leaf coins, they could come to you at some point and say, look, that's a foreign currency and we're trying to stop child trafficking. Okay, well, how does that affect me? Well, you've got a lot of foreign currency. Why would you have foreign currency? That should be American currency. It's pretty sad. Well, in Canada, you have your own coins. They have confiscated gold before. In 1933, FDR confiscated, there was a confiscation of all private gold except for 1 ounce. You were allowed to keep 1 ounce. If you didn't turn in your gold, it was a $10,000 fine or 10 years in prison or both, depending on whether or not you had a lot of it and you were lying to them and they caught you. The moment that the confiscation was over, they turned around and revalued gold from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce. What they did by doing that is they lowered the value of the American dollar by 40% overnight. Let me repeat that. They lowered the value of the dollar, your dollar, by 40% in one day. You had to spend over twice as much to buy the same product the following day. Now, if you'd lied to them and said, I don't have any in 1933, and then you'd held on to it, it would have gone from $20 to $35 overnight. Right now, and this is something that a lot of people don't really understand, the United States values the gold that we have, assuming we have some, at $42 an ounce. The Bank of International Settlements, the European, the EU, there are several other banks around the world that their holdings in gold, and mostly gold, are valued at the original Bretton Woods agreed price. Still, to this day, they're valued at that, $35 an ounce for gold. If they revalued their gold to spot price, it would literally eliminate their debt. There would be countries all over Europe that would be debt-free because they revalued their gold. So when you find out that China just bought 130 tons of gold over the last 6 months, that Saudi Arabia bought 160 tons of gold last month alone, when you find out that India has purchased more gold in the first 6 months of this year than they purchased in all of last year, and that China is now buying unrefined silver for almost twice the market price in South America, because if you buy it before it's refined as slurry and then you refine it yourself in your own country, you don't have to report how many ounces you have. They used to be the second largest exporter of silver. They don't export a single penny's worth of silver now. They import silver. They're hoarding silver. Why are they hoarding silver? You tell me. Right now on the spot market in China, they pay an average of $4 an ounce more for silver. And this is when they're buying millions of dollars. Yes, China is really hoarding silver in a huge way right now, which tells me everything I need to know. Green economy, you need batteries. Newest batteries use about 10 times more silver than the old ones. Saudi mines their own gold. Where? What are you talking about? They just bought 160 tons from Switzerland. That's not mining your own gold, dude. That's the thing. People don't really realize what's going on. Well, JP Morgan's been hoarding silver for many, many years. They have 11 billion ounces of it. Now, the LBMA, which is really important, should we join BRICS? We're not invited. We can't join BRICS. And by the way, it's not BRICS, it's BRICS Plus now, because they now have 9 countries that represent 55% of the world's GDP and population. And they're buying, all of them are buying an enormous amount of gold. Russia is buying, God himself only knows how much gold. Well, they might have mines in Saudi Arabia, that's great, but they're buying hundreds of tons of gold. And the reason that all of these countries, like, why did China decide to buy 133 tons of gold? Well, they did it literally within weeks after they said they weren't buying our debt anymore. They weren't going to buy our bonds anymore. Why? And why are they not keeping it in the LBMA or COMEX? LBMA is the London Bullion Market Association, the largest bullion vaults on planet Earth. It's where everyone keeps their gold and silver for liquidity, because you could call the LBMA and say, sell it. 5 minutes later, they call you back and they say, got you spot. Boom, done. You're out. If you bring it to your own country, you have to then ship it somewhere else when you sell it. I don't know if you've ever seen what a trainload of gold looks like, but it's a lot of energy moving it back and forth, a lot of security, a lot of headache. So why would all of these countries, like Russia, be buying it in Africa and then sneaking it back into Russia? Why is China buying it all around the world with silver and bringing it back to their country? Why aren't they trusting the London Bullion Market Association, the oldest, strongest bullion group on earth? Why won't they let COMEX hold it? because they don't trust the United States anymore. That's the point. These countries are tired of it. They're not going to put up with our shit anymore. When we seized $300 billion of Russian assets, and then on top of that, started funding Ukraine, the rest of the world saw that. And there were a lot of countries that said, no way. I don't trust these fuckers anymore. They're just obviously, they're on their own side. And how do we know that we're not going to do something to piss them off? How do we know they're not going to come to us tomorrow and say, by the way, you have to do this or else? Or else what? Or else we'll seize all your assets that are in the United States. Oh, well, I guess I just won't keep any there. I didn't get the question. Have I heard what? You got to shoot that to me again. Because China is going to drop all the U.S. Treasury bonds. Well, not at the same time, but they announced 6 months ago that they are no longer buying Treasury bonds. The number one and number two holders of the United States debt in the world, along with number three, China, Japan, and Saudi Arabia, have all become net sellers of debt. They're dumping their U.S. debt. After Trump, you're aware that Biden seized their assets, right? You're aware that Trump was not the president of the United States when Russia and Ukraine kicked off? You weren't aware of that. You just watch PMS NBC. Rachel Maddow. Don't tell me. Let me guess. Some people's logic just blows my mind. Well, if you're buying U.S. debt, we have the safest debt in the world, or we did. Look, if you're getting 5%, 4%, even 3% on your bonds, and you have hundreds of billions of dollars a year that you don't know what the hell to do with, you can invest it in ghost cities if you want. They did that. But also, hell, just buy some debt, make some money on it. It's safe until it's not. And so now they're buying debt that they can bring back to the United States, or back to their own country and not leave in the United States. The Grand Canyon is full of gold. Let's see. Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. There's a very good chance that I'm turning off my ringer. It keeps going off because people keep texting me, and that's okay. But I just don't want to hear it right now. There we go. It's a national park. You just can't go and dig up national parks now unless you're fracking. That was the very, very, very first thing what's his name? The VP under W. God, I blocked his name from my memory because he's so damn evil. Remember what happened to the market before World War I? History repeats itself. Before World War I? Well, there was in 21, there was a depression, but it was short. Cheney, right? Yeah, the first day that Cheney was in office, he held a conference, a private conference. Nobody was allowed to take notes, see anything. It was with the heads of all of the largest oil companies in the world. And they decided that it was important to start fracking in national parks. So they're allowed to frack in national parks now. However, the one thing that they made sure this was funny because you can't just go fuck up a national park, right? Well, apparently you can, but there's a caveat. You're not allowed to keep people from walking anywhere in a national park. So you're not allowed to fence off your fracking operation. Yeah, that was the only caveat, is you can't put a fence around your fracking rig. It can be in the park and you can have security, but you can't put a fence around it because then you're restricting access to a national park. Well, that is sort of the problem, is that we've spent so much money and we've made them so wealthy that now they control most of the strategic metals in the world. And without them, we're fucked. And by the way, we don't have any manufacturing left in the United States to speak of. So we can't live without China, and they can't live without us. But they're getting ready to live without us. They are literally making moves now. I've always said China's no threat to us. They own. Look, if most of the money that you have saved up over your lifetime is in someone else's hands, and the only way to get it is to stay friendly with that person, then you don't go and shoot them. You just don't shoot them. Because if you shoot them, you just lost everything. You suffer just as much as they do because you're broke now. Well, that's the way it's been for 30 years. It's not that way anymore. Now that they're no longer buying our bonds and they're starting to buy gold and silver instead, Chaikin Analytics. No, never heard of them. Never heard of Chaikin. Let's see. Wait until they raise the cost of goods to real prices of manufacturing. China? No, their manufacturing is very, very different than ours. When you pay somebody $10 a day, yeah, you can manufacture things a lot cheaper. China and Russia are taking over Africa, but more partnerships. Yeah, well, look, Russia kind of does it a little bit the same way we do. They send in Wagner and they help prop up the dictators. China goes in and says, "Hey, what do you guys need? You need a hydroelectric dam? You need an infrastructure? All right, we'll build that for you. By the way, we would like to kind of hang out here and work with you guys. Would you mind if we opened a mine and did this and that?" And so they're much smoother and they're much more negotiating with these countries as opposed to the United States, which goes in and says, "Hey, look, we're going to prop up your government, but in return for that, you're going to give us everything for basically nothing." Africa has an enormous amount of resources, but then again, so does Russia, so does the United States, so does Canada, so does Mexico, who makes half the silver in the world every year, so does South America. Let's see, Australia, yeah. Yeah, pretty much everybody's got a lot of resources. It's just the game is use those people's resources up first. That's literally the game we're playing. If you wonder why we keep doing these stupid things where we're relying on countries that hate us, it's because we're trying to use up all of their resources first. I drink your milkshake and I keep mine for later. And then I'm the only guy with one. Oh, yeah. Well, China and Saudi Arabia just cut a deal. I mean, I saw Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who everybody agrees is running the country now. He went to China, shook Xi's hand, and said, and I quote, "China is now our number one priority, not just now, but for the next 50 years. Well, why do you say 50 years? That's a long fucking time. Because the agreement that they had with the United States was 50 years, and it's over. And they said basically, look, guys, it's been fun, but it's not us, it's you, and it's over. That's that. Heard it's going to be $55 to 1 BRICS. There's zero chance that that's right because nobody knows. Nobody has the slightest idea. Not petrodollar, petro one. No, that's not true either. And here's why. Okay. I'll give you an example. I'm Saudi Arabia. I'm selling you oil. You're wherever the fuckistan, and you give me your gazubu dollars, whatever the fuck they're called, and now I have billions of them. What the fuck do I do with these? Well, I got to buy something from you because I've got your currency. Makes sense, right? If I'm taking yuan, I have to buy shit from China. What if I don't want shit from China? What if I want something that Russia's got? Well, they don't want yuan. That's why the American dollar was so handy, because everybody accepted it. But what about BRICS? Now, if I'm Brazil and I'm buying oil from Saudi Arabia, and they're paying me in, or I'm paying them in BRICS currency, they can then take that BRICS currency and say, what do we want to buy? Well, let's see. We've got so far 9 different countries I can spend this money on. Cool. Well, I don't need anything from China right now, but the Russians have some stuff I want, and actually, I'm going to spend some of it right back in Brazil, South Africa. They make some of the best weapons in the world. I think I'll buy some of those. That's why BRICS is so important. Somebody's in the wrong chat, huh? Oh, is that the guy who keeps blabbering? Oh, vote for sanity. Kamala Harris, she's really, she's so good at the economy. You heard her. Everybody loves their lawn where she lives. Whatever. Yeah. 50-year petrodollar, 50-year deal with China. And that's going to be the key. Like there are a lot of countries that have already joined BRICS, and there are dozens more that have shown an interest or already applied, like Turkey. Yeah, that's a big one. That's huge. It's going to be tough. On the other hand, what are their choices? We have forced this to happen. We didn't let it happen. We forced it to happen. The trade policies we've had for the last few years are so completely insane that, look, when we people don't even understand. Well, Mexico actually did express an interest in BRICS currencies, which should scare the shit out of all of us. No, I haven't gotten to Colorado yet. I still need to go. I want to go. But I'm also looking at a couple of other places because I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going to set up a place where people want to come if something goes wrong, it should be large enough to have a lot of people. And it should have a huge water supply, and it should be a nice place. I found out that ranch happens to be in the absolute coldest spot in Colorado. Yeah, a place that gets pretty damn cold in the wintertime. It's the coldest. That ranch happens to be in a valley where all of the cold air flows down out of the Rockies and right through there. So you get minus 20-degree weather all winter and a 60-mile-an-hour wind. Oops. Let's see. You should have a little more self-confidence. I don't even know if that's possible. Alamosa. That's exactly right. Bo fucking Randall. I should have known some guy named Bo would have the answer. Yeah, basically, it makes Idaho look like an oven. Let's see. Tennessee has lots of land and water. Exactly, but it's like 200 feet above sea level. I want something that's at least a few thousand feet above sea level, literally, and not close to the coast. That's the other problem. I love the ocean. And you keep saying Coors Light. Coors Light is like having sex in a canoe. That's fucking near water. I thought America could be self-sufficient. Well, yeah, absolutely. The Ozarks, there are some places in the Ozarks that are high enough up that it's called the Cumberland Plateau. And if the worst case scenario happens, Cumberland Plateau will probably be a beautiful island. How about some land here in Tucson? Tucson's nice. And Tucson does have all of the sort of prerequisites. So I'm looking in northern Arizona, and I'm looking in southern Arizona. The only problem with New Mexico is it's just slightly better than old Mexico. The economy sucks, and the people there seem to be pissed all the time or sad. That's all I saw was pissed off people and sad people when I was in Albuquerque. It was fucking depressing to be there. You're from Canada. Well, stay here. Don't go back because it got crazy up there. Not in our lifetime. Or not in your AR's lifetime. Depends on how many rounds you put through them. 10, 15,000 rounds, it'll still be okay. Shout out to Shadow Mountain. Okay. I just did. Maybe this Canadian should move to Arizona. Yeah, we don't have. Do we have hockey? Oh, the Coyotes. We have a hockey team. Are they still here? I don't know. Maybe they left. You know what? Who knows? Oh shit, they left. That's how much I know about sports. Okay, ask me, ask me what the real core GDP is. I can tell you. Ask me what interest rates are going to be 6 months from now. I'll nail it. But yeah, when it comes to sports, I didn't know our team left. Kingman, Arizona. You know, of course, that we send people to Kingman, Arizona as a penalty for shoplifting, right? We make them go live in Kingman for a couple of weeks. And then if they show, that they're penitent, then we let them come back to the real part of Arizona. I've been through Kingman a few times. It doesn't